Welcome to Looking at Legal Stuff. Today we have a second evidentiary hearing in part 2 of a case with a couple where dad has agreed to supervised visitation due to his admitted anger management problems and bad judgment, but now he's returning to court in an attempt to expand his visitation to unsupervised weekends. Dad says things are going great. He's completed all the requirements of the court and he's been following all the rules that he and Mom have agreed on. He says he's ready for unsupervised time. Mom says that things aren't going as great as Dad claims. She says he's left the older children at home alone during the night so he could go to work, that he's been driving them around without seatbelts and taking the children on questionable work-related errands, and that he's hired a woman to babysit his children who is only 20 and has lost custody of her own children. Does the judge think it's time to expand his visitation to unsupervised weekends? Let's find out.
We're ready on Duffy versus Duffy then. So.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
We do have some witnesses in the courtroom. I know if the
I'm
court would
sorry?
like. We do have some witnesses in the courtroom.
All right, is the rule requested?
I believe so.
All right, the rule has been requested, so anyone who's going to be a witness other than the parties must go outside of the courtroom and remain outside of the courtroom until you are called to testify. You're not to discuss the testimony of any other witness with anyone prior to yourself being called as a witness. Counsel are under a continuing duty to ensure that the rule is complied with. Is the monitor on out in the hallway? Just double check to make sure it's not.
Your Honor, I would just ask if Dr. George Davis may be able to remain in the courtroom. He is the expert in this case that the court had appointed by, well, not appointed, but there had been an agreed order that.
Any objection to that? All right. You wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, just briefly. Sure. One of our witnesses, Your Honor, has a glucose monitor, so I just am carrying it for her. Briefly, Your Honor, this divorce action started back in the spring, and the court may recall that in May of this year, the court had entered an agreed order that my client would have supervised parenting time every weekend for 4 hours with his Aunt Connie Russell doing the supervision. And he also agreed at that time back in May that he would submit to a psychological evaluation with Dr. George Davis and that he would complete an 8-session anger management class. At the time, my client really wanted to do everything that he could to address any concerns that the court may have, address any concerns that the wife may have, and really try to work towards making sure that he would be in the best position possible to have as much parenting time with his children as he could. And we had stated in that agreed order, and I have a copy here if the court would like me to pass it up.
I've looked at the file.
That we would come back in August, and we would, at that time, it was anticipated that the husband's parenting time would be increased. When we came back in August, he had in fact done everything that he was supposed to do. He did his 8-session anger management class. He submitted to his evaluation. Dr. Davis was here to testify. Dr. Davis's report did indicate, and he indicated in his testimony, that he did want Mr. Duffy to do some additional programming, an additional 12 steps of anger management geared toward parenting. He did testify at the time, however, that he thought it would be appropriate for him to have additional parenting time as long as it was supervised. His testimony was actually that he thought him having all but 1 weekend a month from Friday to Sunday, which is the schedule that he has with his older children from prior to the marriage, that would be appropriate for the younger children as long as it remained supervised, but that additional programming should take place before the supervision was lifted. The court decided at that time not to make any changes until that additional programming was completed. And so after that hearing, my client spoke with Dr. Davis and Main Street Interventions, which is the center where he had done his initial anger management and where he's also doing ongoing therapy. And Dr. Davis approved, in speaking with a woman by the name of Patty Flores Pugh at Main Street Interventions, Dr. Davis approved programming for Mr. Duffy of a 26-step domestic violence course to be completed in 12 weeks, along with a 12-step parenting course to be taken simultaneously, and that would satisfy his recommendation for the additional programming for Mr. Duffy. And Dr. Davis did have the opportunity to speak with Ms. Flores Pugh about what that programming would look like and his specific concerns for Mr. Duffy so that his programming could be tailored to address Dr. Davis's concerns. At this point, he has completed all of that programming, and Dr. Davis has met with Mr. Duffy again, and he's here today to testify that really he's satisfied the requirements and that he's in a good place to take on that additional time. At this point, it's been over 6 months that he's had only that limited supervised parenting time with the children, including through the holidays. He'd really like to have that additional time, and I think he's ready for it. And so we are asking the court if we can get to that schedule, that is the schedule for his older children, unsupervised.
Fine.
So I'd like to start by calling Dr. Davis.
Well, let's hear from Ms. Duke if she wishes to make an opening statement.
Sure.
I would love to report that things were going well, but they have not gone well. I would submit to the court that part of compliance with doing classes and doing the things that Mr. Duffy's been ordered to do is to be honest with your therapist and to follow the recommendations of the therapist. He may be following the recommendations of the therapist, but I would submit to the court that he's probably not been honest. During the pendency of this, shortly after this court ordered what they did about continuing the classes and doing the things he needed to control his anger after the episode at the arcade, Mr. Duffy was summoned into court with the mother of his other children and a restraining order put down based on the fact that he had been leaving his 10-year-old and 2 9-year-olds home alone until almost 3 a.m. during his visitation time. He was leaving them alone in order to go drive a limousine, which, you know, if he's got a job, that's fine, but he was leaving them at home alone. Kids confirmed with their mother that he was doing that, and I don't think he will deny that because now there is an order down that prevents him from leaving them home alone. He was also carrying them around until 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning in his limousine in downtown Nashville and other places, various locations, and the kids were coming home and telling their mother about that. That's poor parenting. He's not done anything in order to curb his issues with parenting. He continues to tell the children not to tell their mother things, not to tell my client things. So there are 2 mothers we're dealing with here, but I think the evidence would show today that he continues to tell them not to disclose things to the children. He's got a love interest now, which is of no mind to Miss Duffy or the other mother, other than the fact that he's having the kids around this love interest, who they don't know and he's not discussed with them. He's taken a trip to Chattanooga, which in and of itself probably would be fine. However, on the way back, the kids FaceTimed the mother, and they were on I-24 headed back.
Are we talking about which kids, which mother?
Miss Duffy. They were on their way back on I-24 to Dixon, and they were all out of their seatbelts on the interstate. Again, poor parenting. I think that if Mr. Duffy had been honest with his therapists and counselors and had disclosed these things, concerns about his parenting would have been raised. While it's really not the biggest issue in all of this, the kids have reported that all they eat when they're with him are fast food meals, reporting back that they had had 3 trips to McDonald's in one day. When they arrived back to when the youngest of all the children come back to Miss Duffy, they've got full diapers and have started developing diaper rashes, which she has to care for because he doesn't change them. She's had to start making efforts to change them almost immediately before she drops them off to try to curb some of those issues. It's just absolutely poor parenting. Maybe he's addressed some of his anger issues, though the kids report that he's still calling them assholes and bitches, which was an issue before, and your court directly addressed that issue in your order, and he's still doing those things. So concerns all around, Judge. I think if he were honest with his therapist, the things would be different today.
All right. You may call your first witness, Ms. Morris.
And Your Honor, if I may just say briefly that I know that Ms. Duke has implied that Mr. Duffy has not been honest about all of these issues. In fact, Dr. Davis will testify that he did speak with him all about the TRO and everything that happened with his ex-wife. All of that has been disclosed and is a part of what we're going to present today. With respect to the issues of, fast food and full diapers, he has 4 hours with the kids. I don't think it's a reflection if he's eating fast food of what he would do if he had a longer amount of time and then he's driving them back home. So I do hope that the court will take into consideration the circumstances that has limited his parenting time. I will go ahead and call Dr. Davis.
All right. Dr. Davis, if you'll come around, please. And I'm going to have you come over here and raise your right hand.
Could you please state your full name for the record?
George Davis.
And Dr. Davis, you have previously testified and been certified as an expert in this court? I'm just going to pass you up a document. I have copies for the court and opposing counsel. Dr. Davis, is that your CV?
It is.
And if you could just tell the court briefly about your background.
I'm a licensed attorney and a licensed psychologist. As a psychologist, I've been a psychologist since, I think, '86. I do see people as adults. I do some court-ordered reconciliation counseling or parenting counseling. I teach I've taught in the past at Vanderbilt. I teach at Trevecca as a guest lecturer every year. And I work for Social Security Disability as a psychologist also.
And your involvement in this case began back in May with the court order asking Mr. Duffy to subject himself to an evaluation with you?
I did. Yes, that's when it started.
And Your Honor, I'd just like to ask to admit the CV as Exhibit 1.
Mark it as Exhibit 1.
And as part of your evaluation, who all did you meet with? And
Well, a couple people. Obviously Mr. Duffy, and then Brittany Duffy, also mother. And then I had a phone call with Ashley Blair, which is Mr. Duffy's ex-wife.
did you feel that you had all of the information that you needed at the time to prepare your report? And I'm going to pass up, and I believe this was an exhibit at our last hearing as well, Your Honor, but I'm going to pass up a copy of your amended report. And again, I have copies for opposing counsel in the court.
I haven't seen this yet.
Ms.
Or is
Duke,
this
it's
the
the
old
same
one?
one from
Okay.
the last time we were here.
I have seen it.
And Dr. Davis, this is your report that was submitted to the court back in August of last year.
That's correct.
And I know that you testified at length about your report the last time that we were before the court, but I just want to ask you briefly to talk about a couple of points in this report. In the section on page 4 with the conclusion and the discussion, you had said that you thought that the current restriction of supervision was warranted at that time.
That's correct.
And you said that you thought the court may wish to limit the overall time. And I believe your testimony at the last hearing was not that you meant limit it further than what he already had, but limit it as compared to a normal parenting schedule.
That's correct.
And is it correct that your testimony at the last hearing was that you thought as of August that it would have been appropriate for Mr. Duffy to have supervised visitation that was expanded to be the full weekend?
Yes, that coincided with his other children being present.
That was an important part of your recommendation,
Right.
correct? Both in your report and in your testimony?
That's correct.
And at the time, it was your understanding that Mr. Duffy is having weekends with his older children, all but one weekend of the month, running from Friday to Sunday.
That's correct.
And you thought at the time, in August, that it would be okay for the younger children to join in on those visits as long as it remained supervised.
That's correct.
And you were aware that those visits are supervised by Ms. Connie Russell.
Yes.
Now, also at the time, you made some recommendations about what it would take to lift the supervision.
I did.
And can you remind the court a little bit about that?
Well, what I suggest is he take an anger management class for parenting from a licensed counselor, and that he should have a minimum of 12 hours of anger management. I can just say subsequent to that, I got on the phone with Ms. Florence Pugh of Main Street Interventions, and we discussed at detail what kind of program she had, and she had a 26-week, I think, domestic violence class, as well as then a 12-step parenting class. So she was going to combine the two things. I thought that fit perfectly with what he needs, and I was satisfied that that would meet the needs of the court and the situation.
And did you have a chance to talk to Ms. Flores Pugh a little bit about her qualifications?
I did.
And did you feel confident that she would be able to administer the programming in a way that would satisfy your recommendation?
I was.
And did you have a chance to talk to Ms. Flores Pugh a little bit about your concerns for Mr. Duffy specifically in this case?
Yes. Obviously, there's been allegations of anger acting out, and it looks like, some evidence that supports that. And so she thought that this would be right in line with what he needs, and I agreed with her.
Okay. And you felt confident at that time that her programming would address your specific concerns?
Yes.
What were you mostly concerned about when it came to Mr.
Well,
Duffy based on your evaluation?
I don't, he's not a mean person. He's not someone that enjoys anger. He's not someone that revels in power. He's just someone who gets caught up in the moment and acts out. And so what I wanted in any program with anger management with someone like him is to learn the basic steps of how do you de-escalate a situation? How do you go from 12 out of 1 to 12 down to an 8 or to a 6? Because sometimes anger is important as a parent. You're angry at your child not doing well. You got to express anger, but in a modulated way that makes sense and that's beneficial for the child. And so that was my biggest concern. And I can say this: I met with him twice since this evaluation. And he was able to articulate to me his strategies that he learned for how you de-escalate, and I thought he did a good job at that.
Did you have concerns specifically about his ability to parent outside of the anger issue, about judgment and that sort of thing?
Well, we discussed the issue of leaving the children alone. That came up, and he.
So you're referencing what Ms. Duke was talking about with the
Yes.
TRO?
Yes, and obviously he said, well, he had babysitter lined up, but the babysitter either canceled or was much later than she was supposed to be there. He didn't expect them to be left by themselves that late. And so, he just said, it's just not worth it. I want to see my kids. I'm just not going to try to work on nights I have the kids. And that's what the parties agreed to. And they were able to, excuse me, I thought I'd turn this off. Turn it off. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. They did discuss. I lost my train of thought.
You're saying it wasn't worth working
Oh,
when you had the children.
yeah. Thank you, Your Honor. That it just wasn't worth it for him. He really values his time with his kids. He desperately wants to get that back. So he's like, I'm just not going to work on those nights. I mean, I understand he's got a lot of financial concerns. I mean, myself, these things cost money, and he was trying to make all that right. And And he has, by the way, he has paid me fully, and he doesn't owe me any money. I'm not testifying based on getting any money from him. I think he's a good person who's really trying to provide for his family and do well, but he's got to face that when you've got kids, you can't work. It's just what it is. And so he's come to that acceptance.
Do you find Mr. Duffy to be an honest and credible person?
Yeah, I mean, now he didn't tell me about this allegation about, I was listening to the opening remarks of Mrs. Duff. It didn't mention the changing of diapers, out of seatbelt issue. I wasn't familiar with those. I don't know if those are valid issues or not, but for instance, when we talked through the video that the mother had presented about the arcade, he was very open about that, talked through that. I think he's generally open. I don't think he's trying to conceal anything. If he left something out, it may be by omission, but I don't see that as a substantial issue. Now, this not tells the kids not to tell mother. Well, you know, a lot of parents do that. Reminds me of my first day of my children being in kindergarten. We were taking them to a private school, and the teacher said, I won't believe half of what the kids say about you if you don't believe half of what the kids say about me. And I think, you know, kids can kind of build things up to be bigger than they are. And I think the better approach is for both parents to understand that not everything that the kids say is going to necessarily be true. It may be, in part. But I don't think that that's a good strategy to tell them not to tell mother. But I think generally speaking, I don't see it's some broad plan at being deceptive and trying to hurt the children or trying to deceive the mother.
And Mr. Duffy was forthcoming with you about the issue with his ex-wife leading to that TRO, which has since been dismissed.
Yes.
And in your opinion, does that issue have bearing on this case?
No, I mean, does he have some lapses of judgment or parenting styles that I would do differently? I mean, everybody does. And I think that mother and he should discuss those things. Like, I think they basically discuss what should they do about this issue. He said, I'm trying to get a babysitter. And she said, no, how about you just not drive? And he agreed with that. And you guys.
And you're referring to his ex-wife, the mother of the older children.
And they came to an agreement. I think that's what normal parenting does. And that's what they should do in situations like this, discuss these issues and come to some settlement.
And now you said that you had met with Mr. Duffy twice after
Yeah.
he completed the programming
Yes.
at Main Street Intervention. When was the most recent time that you met with him?
It was last week. Let me look at my calendar real quick. It was the 30th.
At this point in time, what would be your recommendation in terms of parenting time?
Well, I think he could exercise the time that he's got with his other kids, with the kids from his current marriage.
His prior marriage?
Yeah.
You're aware that he is asking the court today to please have every weekend but the last weekend of the month, from Friday to Sunday, which is the schedule that he has with those older children. He's asking the court to please have the younger two children at the same time for that full period.
I understand that.
And do you believe that that's appropriate?
Yes, I don't know enough about mom's schedule, whether that's appropriate for the court's purposes, but I think could Mr. Duffy manage that? Yes.
And it was probably a bad question. I just meant in terms of Mr. Duffy's ability to parent
Right.
and the progress that he's made.
Yes, I have no concerns.
And do you feel that it would be appropriate for that time to be unsupervised at this point?
Yeah, I think he's got basically older kids that in essence are some level of supervision. They're really not supervisors, but I think he could do it unsupervised.
Is there anything else that you think that the court should know?
No.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions for Dr. Davis.
Duke?
Dr. Davis, I'm
Hi.
Hillary Duke. We've met once before via video, but you've not called my office or discussed any of the issues that Ms. Duffy was still having with Mr. Duffy, correct? Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to be objective and us go through a few issues that she's had today and then make an objective finding, if you
Okay.
don't mind. I think the court probably respects your opinion, but obviously we've still got some concerns. So when we talk about hiding things from other parents or from the other parent, naturally a child may blow something up, but when a parent specifically tells a child, and we need to delete these texts, don't.
Turn your microphone on the table though. If you're gonna object, just turn, there's a microphone, you have to touch the base.
I apologize. We don't have any evidence in the record of this
This
conversation
is an
happening.
expert witness, is he not?
He is, but
And then you can ask a hypothetical question of an expert witness without any prefatory evidence, so overrule any objection.
Regarding the working late and giving you just a little bit of background on that. When he specifically tells, or a person specifically tells a child, and we need to delete these texts, don't want your mom to know.
Mhm.
Is that appropriate parenting behavior?
No.
Okay. Now, what was the date of your meetings with Mr. Duffy? I know you said 12:30 was one date. What was the other date?
11/21.
11/21. Is there a reason, we were going backwards. We were in court in August. Is there a reason why you waited till November to meet with him again?
Well, I'm not his therapist. I want to just get an update about how he was right at the end of his anger management classes, and I wanted to find out how that went and kind of what he learned from that. And so that was the purpose of that meeting. And the last one was just to kind of check in with him, see if anything's changed. I knew court was coming up. I wanted to understand if there were any new issues that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. And did he disclose to you that he had told the child to delete text messages?
No,
Okay. Did you ask about that?
no, I didn't.
For the record, we're talking about his older children in those
Yes.
text messages because these kids are 2 and 4, and those kids are 9 and 10, is that correct?
There are 2 9-year-olds and then a 10-year-old,
Okay,
yes.
2 9-year-olds, so he has 3 children.
Yes, Your Honor. Are you aware, it would have been his 12:30 appointment. So at the 11:21 appointment, you went over how things were going with him.
Yes.
Okay. Some 4 days later, did you get a phone call or get any information about him going to Franklin with a pistol in order to confront someone who had stolen a client of his cell phone?
No,
Were you aware that his children were present?
no.
Is that the impulsive behavior that he's kind of had throughout this case?
Well, I'd like to hear more about the incident and
Okay. So when he testifies, or Ms. Duffy testifies about it, if those facts play out, that was in fact what happened, would that give you pause regarding your recommendations with this court?
again, I'd like to know more, like, is he carrying a gun in his pocket like he normally does, and he just was there, or did he brandish the weapon? I mean, I'd like to know more facts about it. I don't think having a gun in your possession, which is constitutional right, is necessarily a bad parenting. I think brandishing a gun in a conflicted situation with a stranger would not be appropriate. So,
Okay. How about just, let's say the gun doesn't even come into play, confronting someone about a stolen cell phone when your children are with you? Specifically driving out to Franklin to confront someone with your children with you.
I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, we have to deal with society, and if someone's stolen something from you, you want to confront that. Just the fact that your kids are in the presence. I mean, I could argue that it helps train them a little bit on how to deal with conflict. As long as he was appropriate and didn't create a scene, you don't have, you're giving me some bare facts and making it sound terrible. It may have been terrible. I just don't know if it was.
Okay, but would you have concerns for your own children if they were put in a scenario like that of enforcing the laws in the state of Tennessee when we've got police and sheriff's agencies to take care of those things?
Yeah, but we can't go to police for everything. If someone's stolen a cell phone of mine or of a friend of mine and I wanted to confront them, say, hey, you've got someone's cell phone, can you give it back?
Well, it wasn't his cell phone, it was a client's cell phone.
Okay, or a client's cell phone. I mean,
What in your mind makes that acceptable?
because those kind of conflicts exist in society, and if anything, having kids see you handle conflict in a reasonable way is an important skill that they need to understand.
But it's taking away from his parenting time, is that correct?
Would be considered part of his parent. I mean, I think it's not necessarily, again, I don't know if this took place for hours, if it took place for just a few moments. He was on the way driving, he stopped to talk to this person. There's a lot of details here that kind of set this situation up to either be a terrible situation or a normal and actually enhancing situation for the kids. I mean,
but you never know if someone's going to be brandishing a weapon. You don't know. I mean, what in your mind justifies this if this isn't even Mr. Duffy's phone?
okay.
Why in your mind is it okay for him to insert himself in this situation on a date and time when he has his children?
You said it was his client's phone?
Yes.
Okay. So he's got an interest in obviously keeping his clients, possessions while I assume this is a limo client. Is that?
Yes, 4 days after you met with him.
Okay. So he's got a client limo, a client from his limo business that obviously left their phone. I'm trying to understand the scenario. Left their phone in the car. Someone else has got it. He goes out there and says, hey, you've got my client's phone. Can you return it?
Well, let's just take it one step further. He came to you on the 30th of December. This happened 4 days after he met with you on the 21st of November. And then on the 30th of December, he didn't disclose to you that he had done these things with his children, did he?
But that doesn't necessarily, I don't think it's an issue.
Well, it would be an issue if he's discussing progress with you, right?
Yeah, but I didn't hear anything necessarily that was a problem. So
So do the kids have to be injured before you think that there's a problem with this?
Absolutely not. But again, I think not knowing the situation, I'd certainly want to hear from Mr. Duffy. What you're raising this issue up. No one from your firm called me to let me know about this. I
frankly didn't know he had met with you again because you didn't call my office to discuss any of the issues she was having.
So
is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
But I mean, either way, we knew this hearing was coming, and we knew. I guess I don't know if you knew I was coming today to the hearing, but didn't. I feel like this situation is too vague in my mind to really understand whether it's significant or not.
The parenting class that he's enrolled in, how intensive is that?
It's a 12-step parenting class that he did? Yes.
Okay. It's usually a court-ordered parenting class, is that correct?
Yeah.
And what would your position be if he, as a parent, hired someone he met at the parenting class to babysit his children?
I don't know. I'd have to know more about the situation and why they were there. It sounds
Sounds suspect, doesn't
suspect.
it?
I was looking for the right word. That's the right word. I was looking.
Okay.
It sounds suspect, but I don't know.
And you heard about the interstate incident that happened after our hearing and after.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about
Okay.
that because I just don't.
So if the mother, and had we spoken to you, we would have disclosed these things. if the mother observed her children climbing all over the car in a moving car and said something.
Another mother, not
No, this mother.
this mother.
Duffy,
She
yes.
was following him and observed it?
No, she's on FaceTime,
She's on FaceTime,
yes. And his older children are.
moving around unrestrained.
Yes, unrestrained. And older children report that this is not an isolated incident.
Okay?
That give you cause for
Yes.
concern about his ability to
I mean,
parent.
kids need to be in car seats. We know that.
And you said earlier his issue specifically is that he gets caught up in the moment and can't undo it when he's caught up in the moment. That's what you had been practicing with him or had him practicing with Miss Patty Flores, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And as of November the 25th, how far along in that process was he? Do you know?
He had one more session.
Okay. So he had almost completed all of his sessions when he took off with his children to go collect a stolen cell phone. Is that correct?
Which date was the cell phone? Was it after that?
Yes.
Okay.
The 25th.
Sounds like it.
Judge, may I have just a moment?
You may.
Judge, that's all.
Redirect.
And Dr. Davis, just to be clear, those were hypothetical questions that Ms. Duke was answering. You've not received any information that, any actual evidence from anybody in this case that Mr. Duffy confronted someone with children in the car
That's
on or
correct.
around November 25th. So you have no actual facts about what may or may not have happened.
That's correct.
Would you feel more comfortable testifying about that after hearing some of the testimony?
Sure.
Okay. And likewise, you have no actual information or evidence from anybody involved in this case that the children were unbuckled in a car seat at any point in time?
That's
Is that correct? Or about hiring someone to babysit the children that was met in a parenting class? Did you have any information about that?
Nothing. No information.
Or any information about fast food consumption during parenting?
No.
Or diapers changing and
Right.
rashes? Okay. Thank you. I have no other questions.
No other questions?
Dr. Davis, let me ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
I've reviewed your letter, or your amended report, and on the last page of that amended report, I relied to a great deal, I think, on the prior hearing on some of your recommendations. And I want to go over those with you. On the very last, next to the last paragraph of that report, you stated that the testing supported the mother and ex-wife's description of a person who acts out in anger in inappropriate ways. He is likely too easily angered and believes he is morally justified to met out punishment. He has very little appreciation of his problems. I would agree with the decision of the court that a prohibition against corporal punishment by Mr. Duffy is appropriate. Court may wish to limit his overall time with the minor children and recommend that any visitation occur when all of the children are present so there are more eyes on his behavior. That is, it is better for his children with Mrs. Duffy to visit with him and his other children when his other children are present. Again, a recommendation of more limited parenting time is offered. I think the current restriction of supervised visitation is warranted. It should be stated that Mr. Duffy's anger is not sadistic in nature. He doesn't enjoy being angry. Rather, he believes, likely wrongly, that he is justified in being angry and is partly driven by inner dynamics that misinterpret interpersonal conflicts. You go on to say he needs to take an anger management for parents class from a licensed professional that goes out to talk about what kind, and then perhaps he can apply to the court for unsupervised time. Should have a minimum of 12 hours of anger management. Now, going back to that first paragraph that I read, tell me what you find today that is different than the situation that existed when you made those recommendations.
Well, I think part of the domestic violence training and his insight, when I spoke to him, he was able to articulate ways to de-escalate and realize that not all anger that you feel is valid. Sometimes you have anger that feels very valid, but then in retrospect, if you can get a little distance from it, you realize, well, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And so he's able to do that, step back from situations and not act so with such intensity and such, so fast with anger, and get a little distance and be able to reevaluate. So my statements earlier were that he sees that he's wronged or believes that he's been wronged, and he reacts, and it's too impulsive and too fast, and then therefore too intense, and now he's able to step back from it a little bit.
And you base that upon his statements to you?
And the actual, yes, his statements, his way of articulating anger, the anger management tools that he learned, as well as the fact that he's taken those classes, which is that's what the focus of that is.
And I know you have a law degree and you practice law, and I know that you're a psychiatrist as well, or psychologist or psychiatrist.
Psychologist, yeah.
I'm sorry. Psychologist. And it brings to mind, no offense intended, but it's like, to my mind, one or the other, but not both. It would seem to me it would be a difficult life to have both of those, professions. Do you understand the burden that this court carries in trying to ensure that a parent has time with the children, but also protecting the children against a parent who is neglectful or that causes some harm to the children?
Oh, that's,
And
yes.
do you understand that when I hear a story, which I have not heard the actual evidence
Right.
of a man who takes two children with him to go and confront someone over a supposedly stolen cell phone and carries a weapon with him, where do you live?
Pardon?
Where do you live?
I live in Brentwood.
Brentwood, all right.
Yeah.
Do you watch the morning news in Nashville?
Oh, yeah.
And how many mornings this week have you heard where there was not a shooting that occurred?
I know.
None. Every morning in Nashville now, we have a shooting that occurs. So it causes me serious concern if in fact that occurred, whether it was the older children or the younger children, that a man would take his children and go into a situation like that as potential for conflict or violence. And that's what I'm concerned about. Is I want him to have a normal relationship with his children.
Yeah.
I have tried to put into place those things that he should do to try to accomplish that. My concern is that every step forward seems to be met by two steps backwards when we see these kinds of things happening, when I hear this. So while I want him to have this time with the children, my main concern is the safety and well-being of the children. I don't care about what her rights are or his rights are. I only care about the best interest of the children, trying to give them a life with both parents in it. So, but neither do I want to go home at night and have to think about a situation where I've put children into a situation where they are harmed. I've sentenced a woman over in Dixon, and I'm preaching a little bit, but
Okay,
I've
that's fine.
sentenced a woman to life in prison in Cheatham County, who was the girlfriend of a man who was the father of a young boy. And it turned out that she was taking that child to work with her, and she was physically abusing that child. And he was both starved and beaten to death over a course of some 6 months by the boyfriend, the girlfriend of the father. Situations like that happen. And that's what causes me concern when I hear that a babysitter that's being selected, I'm not saying it's true, but I'm going to hear whether or not it's true, that a babysitter that he selected for these children that are 2 and 4 happens to be someone he met at a parenting class who has issues of their own. I respect your opinions and your professional, but you understand that sometimes your opinion is based on less than all of the facts. And I think that's what Ms. Duke is pointing out. But if you have any other recommendations other than the fact that he went to this parenting class and the anger management class, and that as a result of that, now he's free to have unsupervised visitation, or do you think he should continue to have supervised visitation?
Well, again, I'd like to hear the details of this case. I
So
mean,
would I.
I'm a gun carrying person. I mean, it'd be not, my son's a police officer. I believe in the right to carry arms. And so I don't know whether he happened to have something in his pocket and just talking to the person and it's,
Well, you're preaching to the choir. I've had a gun since I was 16 years
Right.
old, but that is not the point. The point is whether you use that gun in a way that places your child or children in a potentially
Exactly.
violent situation.
and that's what we don't know. And that's what I was trying to convey to Ms. Duke.
If that were to be the case, would you agree that that would be in fact a very regrettable situation?
Yes, I would agree.
All right. Anything for this witness after what I've asked? Thank you. You can step down, have a seat in the courtroom if you'd like, and you can remain as a witness if it's need to be called. So you may call your next witness. Mr. Duffy, if you'll come around, please.
Can you state your full name for the court, please?
Daryl Allen Duffy.
Mr. Duffy, we're here today on your motion to ask for additional time with your children. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you tell the court a little bit about why you'd like to have additional time with your children?
I miss having time with them. 2 phone calls a week with a buffer of an hour and 4 hours of actual visitation time with drive time to go somewhere. It limits the time that I get to spend with my children when they tell me that you don't love me. They're 4. They're being told that.
I'm
'Cause I
gonna
get to see-
object, Your Honor.
I get to see them 4 hours and
We
they're
have an
telling me.
objection, just a second.
I'm gonna object to that. It's not proper, and there's been no foundation laid, but it's for,
You're objecting to the statements he's repeating of the children saying that he
yes,
doesn't
as
love them.
hearsay.
I'm going to overrule it. I think it basically is reflecting of the situation as he sees it and his lack of time with the children. I'm not accepting that as true. I'm allowing it to be introduced solely to show the emotional situation that's going on. So.
Okay. But the time that we do have together is fun. You know, we go bowling, we go out to eat Mexican or Charlie's or somewhere close by, because I don't have really time to drive them back to Nashville and spend time with them there, though I've had to do that a couple of times.
Mr. Duffy, can you tell the court about your schedule with your older children?
I have 50-50. It's the first 3 weekends of the month. The last full weekend of the month is with mom. I have every school break, so spring break, fall break, and all summer long minus 10 days. In fact, mom has actually requested that I pick the kids up a day early this coming week due to the inclement weather that's coming through, due to the fact that schools will probably be closed on Friday, so I will pick them up on Thursdays instead of Friday this week.
And what is the relationship like between the older children and the younger children?
Between,
Your older 3 and the little 2.
they love them. They want to spend time with them, and they hate the fact that they can't even be on the phone calls.
Because they don't get to participate through the week, so they only see them for the 4 hours.
I'm gonna object to the
Correct.
meeting.
I was
So
just
that
trying to
go-
clarify. I apologize.
Staying, don't leave the witness.
Mr. Duffy, since we haven't been in court last, can you tell the court a little bit about the classes that you've taken?
So the parenting class and the anger management, or the domestic violence class, have been very intuitive. I've learned that it's okay to be angry. You just have to, or I should say, I have to limit how it progresses. So if I give myself the time and think it through, then I can make it, is this an actual issue or is it not? Do I need to reprimand? Do I need to have a talk with them? And so forth. There's no corporal punishment in the house. I still do get loud. But when you have a 9-year-old telling his sister that she's an F and B, that's not coming from me. When you have another 9-year-old using the N-word consistently, not at my house, but I've heard him a couple times say it, there's only so much I can do. I can't say, all I can say at this point is, don't say that.
Mr. Duffy, when we were in court last, the court watched a video of an incident that took place at that bowling alley arcade. And do you recall having a conversation with Judge Wolf about what happened with your son there?
Yes.
How do you see that incident, and how do you see the incidents that have happened subsequent since you've been in this anger management and parenting class? Can you talk to the court a little bit about that?
So I see that I didn't necessarily overreact. I just acted too quickly. It was a high adrenaline issue when you have a child missing for 30, 45 seconds. As with any parent, would be frantic, and emotions were high. Now I'm being more vigilant, keeping track of all the kids together, not stepping away to play a game. So it's a lot different. It's a different aspect of what I'm seeing in myself.
You testified last time, Mr. Duffy, that one of your 9-year-olds has ADHD. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that the most challenging of the children for you?
Yes.
Can you talk at all about your relationship with that child since over the past few months since you've been doing this additional programming?
It's getting a lot better as long as we can as long as both of us can stay calm. There's been some incidences where he's just gone completely off the handle, and I've even had to step in another room. You know, when a 9-year-old balls up his fist and he comes at you, I won't take that. I'll just have to step away. But this is part of, you know, the things that he's going to have to deal with in life. He's going to have to address these issues, and you know, he is seeing a therapist already. I don't know the full outcome of what the therapist is saying with him at this time.
Do you feel that your relationship has improved with him?
Quite a bit.
What about with the other children?
Ella's great. She's pretty much the easiest of the three. Jackson's getting a little more on the hot-headed side, always wanting to fight his brother. But, you know, me and him have a decent relationship. He likes to build stuff, so, you know, he gets Lego sets, or he'll help me work on a car.
I want to talk through some of the specific allegations that came up from the other side. First, I want to talk about the situation with the temporary restraining order that was dissolved with your ex-wife. Can you tell the court about what happened?
I moonlight as a limousine driver to subside some of the expenses that I've accrued over the last 10 months. So there was a time in period where one night a week while the kids were with me, I would leave them at home from about 12 to 2, 12 to 3. I would go drive. My daughter.
Mr. Duffy, just to clarify, were you talking, when you said the kids with you, are you talking about all 5 or just the older 3?
Just the older 3. They're the only ones that have overnights.
Go ahead.
My daughter had a cell phone. She had full access to me, and I was typically within 15, 20 minutes of the house at pretty much any given time. I would leave after they went to sleep. I would be home before they woke up. me and mom made an agreement that as long as there was a sitter there, that I could still continue to drive. And then 3 weeks later, she changed that and filed the TRO,
She changed her mind about what exactly?
having the sitter there.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
She just wanted it to where I didn't drive at all, like period. I hired an attorney at that time out of Wilson County, and we came to an agreement that what I had offered her in the first place is that if the children are with me, I will not drive for business.
And was the TRO dissolved?
It was.
I'm going to pass the document to you. Mr. Duffy, is this the order of the court dissolving that temporary restraining order?
That is correct.
And does it contain that agreement that is now an order of the court that you will not drive the limousine while you have the children, the older children with you?
Not for business or business adjacent purposes only.
And at this point in time, you have the full schedule you described before, back with the older children?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to mark that as exhibit, I believe, 2.
Any objection?
No objection to it.
Exhibit 2?
And are you on good terms at this point with your older children's mother after that agreed order has gone into effect?
As far as I know, yes.
Mr. Duffy, have you ever left your younger 2 children alone?
Only when the one ran away at the bowling alley.
Okay. Would
I'm
you
sorry,
ever?
repeat that.
Only when the one ran away at the bowling alley when I wasn't paying attention. Just that one time.
Would you ever leave them alone?
No,
Would you ever leave them in the care of the older children?
no.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the allegation that you had hired a babysitter from the parenting class.
Correct.
Can you tell the court about that?
Yes, I hired someone, and not only did they babysit, but they also did some household organization. They were in a tough spot, needed some cash, and they were available.
And what is this person's name?
Her name is Nikki.
Nikki, and her last name?
Nikki S.
Best?
S.
S. Can you tell the court exactly how you came to know Nikki?
Nikki was in the parenting class with me.
Okay. And did you become friendly with her?
Friendly in what terms?
I don't mean to imply romantic. I'm just asking if you became friends.
Yes, just friends.
What do you know about her?
That she is married. She has 2 children that she's working with through the court systems right now herself.
And how many times did she babysit for you?
Including this past week, 5 maybe.
And for approximately how long?
The first couple of times were a couple of hours, and the past weeks have been 4 or 5 hours each.
And did she babysit for just the older children?
Correct.
And do you have any concerns?
No.
Do you have any concerns about the fact that, like, as you said, she's working through the court system with her own children?
No, that's her business.
Okay. Do you know anything about that?
Vaguely.
Okay. Can you tell the court what you know?
That she has 2 children. One is a female, one's male. The female is being held by dad and dad's parents, and that's
And she has custody of her son?
she does not.
Where is he?
Custody of the son is with, I believe, the paternal parents, I believe. I'm not 100% sure where son is.
Okay. And did you speak to her about her, how she would handle your children and about their needs before hiring her to babysit?
Yes, I've actually been there while she was watching them.
Do you have concerns that, about the fact that her children are not in her care?
No.
Okay. Do you, did you give your children any instructions when you had them left in her care?
Yes, and if any of them needed me, they can call.
What is your usual sort of process if you're going to have a babysitter?
For the most part, I know in advance, and I only bring in a third party if my aunt is not available.
Okay. And what is your process in terms of deciding who you would want to hire as a babysitter?
One is availability, but two, as long as I know the person, it's not like I knew her for a week and brought her in. That wasn't the case.
Okay.
So I'd known her for a few months before.
And what about her made you feel that she would be a good choice?
She's young. She can interact with the kids. Sometimes when you get people and you're looking to hire, it's not always interviews and immediate hire. You do have to go through a process to know somebody. It's like, I'm not going to hire somebody I don't know right off the street.
So you feel like you want to make sure you can trust that person?
Correct.
Okay. And you felt that Nikki was somebody that you felt was trustworthy?
Correct.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the incident that Ms. Duke brought up and ask you. Was there an incident in November of 2024 where you had to confront someone about a cell phone wallet that was taken from a client of yours?
Yes, but it was not taken.
Why don't you go ahead and tell the court?
So in November of 2024, I had a client reach out to me asking if I was in the Franklin area.
Was this a client from your limo driving?
That's correct.
Okay.
Subsequently, prior to that call, that client, I was unavailable to take that client home, and that client took a cab. That cab, they left a phone and a wallet in there. They gave me the ping address to a Franklin home where the item was. I did have my older kids at that time. I did go to that home to ask, is there a phone here? Is there a wallet here? I didn't know about the wallet until I got there.
Okay.
I only knew about a phone. The house where it pinged, the gentleman answered the door. I explained the situation. His wife came to the door and said, our next door neighbor is a taxi cab driver. So I went next door. I asked him, I said, do you have a phone? And he was like, yes, I have a phone. It's like, that's a previous client of mine. They're on their way here now. Can I get that and I can meet them? And he was like, here you go. He tried to extort $30 from me. It started at $200 and it came down to $30. I still didn't pay it.
Okay.
And I got the phone, and he also handed me a wallet, which also went to that client. And the only reason why I reached out for these clients, one, to keep them happy, but two, they're also from Canada. So they're not 100% local.
Okay. And this is a client that you know well, a repeat client?
During the previous weekend, they rode with me approximately 6 times.
Okay. When you went to get the phone, were you angry?
No.
Did
I was
you-
just going to help a client out.
Did you argue with the person?
No.
At either, it sounds like you rang 2 different bells, the first address and then the neighbor. Did you argue with either of those people?
No.
What, if anything, did you tell the children about the situation?
That we were going to get a phone for a client.
And how far out of your way did you have to go to do that?
20 minutes, 25 minutes?
Did you have a gun on you at the time?
No.
Did anybody have a gun? Was there a gun brandished at all in that altercation?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I saw.
Did either of the people, I think actually there were 3 people that you spoke to. There was the gentleman and his wife at the first house.
Correct.
And the taxi driver at the neighbor's house. Was there anybody else that you spoke to in that interaction?
During that specific interaction, no, but as we were leaving the subdivision, the family that lives across the street had a little boy that wanted to see the inside of the car. So I stopped and I said, hey, my kids are in the back, so if you want to take a look, that's fine.
Because you were driving the limo.
That's correct.
And any of those people that you interacted with, did any of them get angry or yell at you?
No.
And what, if anything, did you tell the children?
I told them, I said, we're just here to get a phone for a client.
Okay. Were they upset?
The kids?
Yeah. When Ms. Duke characterized this as this confrontational incident, is there truth to that allegation? Was this a confrontational incident that could have escalated in front of your children?
I'm sure it could have, but I don't know how it would have.
Okay. And how would you have handled it if it had become aggressive, somebody had become aggressive with you during that time?
Just would have walked away.
Okay. Ms. Duke mentioned that you have fed fast food to the children during your parenting time.
Sure.
Can you tell the court about that?
During the baby's parenting time, I have limited time, so fast food is quick. That's why they call it fast food.
If you had the children, because you're referring to the 4 hours that you have your younger children, do you usually have one meal with them?
We try to.
Would you ever have more than one meal with them during that 4-hour period? So most of the time during that 4 hours, you will go and grab a fast food. Can you give us
Fast
some
food or-
examples of what you would eat with them when you have them?
The girls typically do chicken nuggets and fries, but you know, if we go to the bowling alley, we'll order stuff there for them. Or we went to Mexican that's the past weekend. We've gone to Old Charlie's, we've gone to Applebee's. It's stuff that's local in the area. That we
And you're
go to.
generally out and about with them during your 4 hours.
Correct.
It sounds like you don't have a lot of time to go back to your home with the exchange, I think you said earlier.
No, with a 4-hour time and an hour drive in and then an hour drive back to meet at 4 o'clock is very limited to take them home.
If you had the children for the full weekend from Friday to Monday, would you eat fast food the same way, or how would you feed them?
No. My older kids, I cook white truffle burgers, pork chops, chicken, air fried cheese sticks, and pretty much air fry anything. But I'll use the stove and the oven.
What do you usually have for breakfast?
I typically don't, but they'll have.
Forgive me, the
muffins.
kids. What do you usually serve the kids for
They'll
breakfast?
typically do muffins or cereal.
Okay. Ms. Duke also talked about an incident where she claimed that you had children unbuckled while driving.
So, not that I was aware that they were unbuckled while driving. There was an incident where we were stopped on I-24 on the way back from Chattanooga in dead stop traffic. It was late at night, and we were on the way back from visiting the aquarium.
That was a trip from Chattanooga that Ms. Duke was referring to?
Correct. We were on the way back to Nashville.
Okay. And they FaceTimed with their mom?
They were FaceTiming with the babies.
Okay.
It was during that. It was I believe it was a baby visit.
So
if I'm
you
not
were with the
mistaken.
older children and they were FaceTiming with your wife, Miss Duffy, and the little children?
Just the babies.
Okay. And so you said that you were stopped in traffic?
There was a massive accident around exit 81, and it was backed up for miles.
So you allowed them to unbuckle their seatbelts and get on the phone? When the traffic started moving, did you require them to buckle back up again?
Yeah, I always tell them to buckle in. One of my sons always wants to be unbuckled, but we tell him you have to be in a buckle.
Does he unbuckle himself while you're driving ever?
Sometimes.
And what do you do?
Tell him to get buckled back up. We have to go.
Okay. Do you ever have to pull over?
I've only pulled over twice. For the most part, he's good about putting his buckle back on.
Back on when you tell him, but he does unbuckle himself.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have the little ones, are they in car seats?
Yeah. 5-point harness.
Would you ever drive with them unbuckled?
No.
Have you ever driven with them unbuckled?
Only during like a light show, like a Christmas light show.
Oh, okay. Okay. When everybody's going at a low speed?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Duke also spoke a little bit about some issues with diapering. Have there been any issues with diaper rash or with?
Not that I have been addressed with, but every time I typically, with the exception of maybe once, I've always changed them. I keep a diaper bag, wipes, and diapers in the car at all times.
How old are they again? Remind us.
4, just turned 4 yesterday, and 2.5.
Is the 4-year-old potty trained or potty training?
Potty training, as far as I know, at least that's what she says.
And when she comes to you, is she in a pull-up?
No, she's in a diaper.
She's in a diaper. Okay. And does she tell you when she has to use the bathroom?
No,
Okay. Do you ask her if she has to use the bathroom?
I do.
Okay. And does she tell you if she has gone and her diaper needs to be changed?
No, but I do ask, and I'm sure she would say, I've gone,
Okay.
or I need to go.
And you
But-
typically do change her during that 4-hour visit?
Correct.
Um,
Typically right before they go back.
Have you discussed with your wife how to deal with the potty training and be on the same page?
No, Miss Duffy has not spoken but maybe 10 words, maybe 15 words the entire time since this has been going on.
Are you concerned about the potty training?
Being the fact that they're not with me other than 4 hours, no, not at this time, but once they are with me and I actually have access to them to help them, then I don't think there would be a concern. I already have a training potty at the house.
And you went through this process with your older children?
Correct.
What about the 2.5-year-old? Where is she? Is she starting to potty train as well? or-
I'm assuming that, yes.
Okay.
I would not be 100% certain on that.
Does she articulate if she needs to use the bathroom or if she needs her diaper changed?
Not directly to me in the 4-hour time period.
Do you generally just check?
Correct.
And you generally said you do generally
I'm
change her
gonna
diaper?
object to the leading again.
Stay, don't lead the witness.
Do you generally change her diaper during the 4 hours?
Yes, I typically change both of them right before they go back.
Okay. Do you think that there may have been an issue while they were with you?
Not that I was aware of.
Is there anything else that you would like the court to know about your time with the children?
Yeah, I want to have more time with them. I want to be able to interact and have that relationship. The relationship was stripped away so fast that it was kind of a blindsided move when in all of this. You know, are there things I have to work on? Yes. Are there things that other people have to work on? Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Duff.
Duke, you may cross-examine.
Spell for me Nikki's last name, please.
No, ma'am, I cannot.
What is her last name?
I cannot give that information
Why can you not give that information?
because it's not my information to give.
Well, it is. She's watching your children, sir.
Well, let me abuse you of the notion that you don't get to answer a question, don't have to answer a question. You're asking me to give you time with these children, more time than you have, but you're also asking me to trust the fact that you use someone as a babysitter that you have confidence in, but you're not willing to give the name of that person fully for Ms. Duke and her client or for this court to have any consideration about that particular individual who we now know is someone that you met in a parenting class. So I'm going to tell you that you're going to answer that question, or we'll just stop it right here and you can go on about your business and I'm not going to give you any consideration. So
Sure.
it's up to you. You can.
Her
you
last
can
name is
answer the question.
Shumate, Shumate.
And what has she done to have to take the anger management classes?
I could not articulate on that.
Okay, would that not be important if you're leaving your children with her?
That's her business. I could not attest to everything that's going on with her.
Okay, I understand
that.
it's her business. I understand that, but it's also your business when you're leaving your children with her, wouldn't it be?
Yes.
Okay, so you're before this court and telling this court that you don't know why she was in anger management classes.
She was not in anger management class.
Okay, do you know why she lost custody of her 2 children?
He was in parenting class.
Parenting classes.
The father has issues with her.
Okay, what are those issues that the father has with her?
The father thinks that she tried to kill her child.
Okay, and the court has removed custody on that basis, is that correct?
Just on verbal basis, yes.
Just on verbal basis, but the court has a concern enough to remove custody.
As of right now, yes.
Okay, did
Let me
you,
make sure I'm understanding. Did you say that the father of her children thinks that she tried to kill her child?
He made a false allegation
I
and the
understand, but
court
that's
believed
what
it.
you said, right?
Correct.
and you've had this woman as recently as last week supervise your older children?
Correct.
Do you think that's a good parenting choice?
For the time, yes, I do trust her.
Okay, do you have an intimate relationship with her?
No,
How old is she, sir?
20.
Okay. Did you provide her information to the mother of your older children?
I did give her her name and a cell phone number for her
Okay, when did you do that, sir?
2 weeks ago.
Is Ms. Shoemate living in Dixon?
No,
Okay, is her case going on in Dixon?
no.
Where is Ms. Shoemate's case going on?
Fairview, I believe.
Okay. She have any drug or alcohol issues?
No,
Okay. Did she recently have to get stitches in her hand when she punched some glass?
yes.
Okay. Why'd she punch glass and have to have stitches in her hand, sir?
Because her friend had made a statement that he was going to commit suicide, so she busted a window to get into his house.
She wasn't angry when she did that?
No,
Okay. So is she hanging out with people that have mental illness, stability issues?
and it's somebody that she's been a friend with for multiple years.
Okay.
She doesn't hang out with him regularly.
Is it somebody that she's had around your children?
No,
Sir, how do you know she's not had him around your children?
because I would have known.
Okay, how would you know if you're not there?
The kids would have told me.
Your kids are pretty honest and straightforward, telling their mother and you the things that go on in the other's house, is that right?
Sometimes.
Okay. Do you recall your older daughter texting you to check on you when you were leaving her at home alone?
I do.
Okay. Do you recall her in around October the 18th, Friday, October the 18th, texting and saying, "Night, love you. Did you leave yet? If you did, you're so fast. Get home safe and don't be out till 3 tonight." Do you recall her sending you a text like that?
Yes.
Do you recall telling her, "I just pulled out and we need to delete these texts. Don't want your mom to know"?
I probably did.
Okay. In your mind, looking back on that, when you're under the scrutiny of this court already for your parental issues, do you think that that was a wise decision to send a text like that?
Probably not the best course of judgment.
Okay. Judge, if I may have it.
You may.
I don't see my number anywhere on there. All I see is Mama Bear, which refers to my ex-wife and her daughter.
Sir, it's a screenshot, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and do you recall sending those text messages with your daughter?
Yes, I guess, since it's on here.
Do you recall whether it was on October the 18th?
That I don't recall what date it was. If that was a Friday, then probably.
You were driving your limo and staying out until 3 a.m.
Not my limousine, and I was probably out until 2.
Judge, I'd submit that as the second mark.
Be marked as Exhibit 3, actually.
Oh, 3, I'm sorry.
Hand that to the bailiff, please.
And the only part of that that's important is the screenshot, Judge. Since we were in court the last time, you've called you've called your older children bitches and assholes, haven't you?
No.
Okay. So you've already agreed with me that your children pretty much say what goes on in one home versus the other. Is that right?
For the most part.
Have any reason how you can explain why your kids are saying that you're saying these things?
That I cannot attest to, as I'm sitting in my living room and they're calling each other those names, not me calling them those names.
Okay. But you can agree with me, sir, that the history of this case shows that you're the one that they're learning these names from. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that the only reason you want one of the reasons you want the court to increase your visitation is because you want to see them more. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But you've missed 7 FaceTime calls. Is that correct?
I couldn't attest to 7
Okay.
that I'm aware of. A few, yes.
But you see what I'm saying there. If you're wanting to see them more, why are you not exercising the time that you've got?
Because I've been limited to an hour window and things come up.
Okay, like what?
Being stuck under a vehicle.
Why were you stuck under a vehicle?
I was working on. My phone was not nearby, so the alarm did not go off.
So you didn't remember you had a FaceTime call.
It's not that
Otherwise,
I-
you would have crawled out from underneath that vehicle and done the
It's
FaceTime.
not that I didn't remember, it's that the alarm didn't go off and I was under the car. I didn't know what time it actually was. When I got out, I made that call and I was told that they were already in bed. I've been told that they were already in bed 5 minutes after 7:30, and I know that that's not always the case.
But there are 7 instances where you haven't even attempted a call. Is that correct?
After a certain time, then I know that there's no way that she's going to answer the phone call anyway.
And only one of those instances can be explained because you were working on a vehicle and lost track of time.
I've dealt with kids. I have other things going on.
Okay. So your kids are not your first priority?
They are. I was dealing with other kids, my other ones.
Now, when you went to collect the phone from the person that had it, you traveled 25 minutes. Is that correct?
Roughly.
From where were you traveling?
The Hermitage area?
Okay, all the way to Franklin to pick up a client's phone.
That's correct.
Okay. And before you got there, you changed into your suit. Is that correct?
I changed into a dress shirt, yes.
Okay. And you put your gun on your side.
Incorrect.
Okay. Why would your children report that you put your gun on your hip?
That I do not know because the gun, 1, never goes on my hip, and 2, was not even in the car.
So, sir, what would you have done if there had been a confrontation?
Walked away.
Okay. But that's not your history of dealing with matters like this, is it?
A matter of a stolen phone that was not stolen, it was just left. So it was never a stolen phone in the first place.
Then why could your Canadian clients not go get it themselves?
They were actually on the way.
Okay, then why didn't you just let them handle it? You had your children with you.
Because I was closer than they were. It's something that a business person does, is they help their clients out as much as they possibly can.
With their kids in their car?
I was going to get a phone that was misplaced.
Now, you said your relationship with your older children has actually gotten better, but it hasn't. They're reluctant to go with you, aren't they?
They actually want to go with me.
Ella hasn't wanted to go with you the last time she was supposed to go with you, did she?
Not that I was aware of, at least not that I was told.
Is there a reason you've only met with the therapist twice?
Dr. Davis.
The doctor, yes. Is there a reason you've only met with him twice?
I was told to schedule some appointments with him for follow-up.
Okay, is there a reason you didn't disclose to him that you hired somebody from your parenting class to babysit your children?
I didn't think it was an issue because it's somebody that was just watching the kids for a couple of hours.
Well, I mean, he's assessing your ability to parent, isn't he?
Yes.
Is there a reason you didn't tell him that you had been leaving your children alone for hours at a time?
I did tell him that in the November meeting.
Judge, if I may have one moment, I think I'm done.
All right.
Sir, you can agree that Miss Duffy has a relationship with your older children, doesn't she?
A hidden relationship? Sure.
Well, she was the care provider in your home when you had visitation with your children, wasn't she?
Yes.
And that relationship wasn't hidden.
No, that one wasn't.
Okay. And she makes sure your youngest two children see their siblings, doesn't she?
That I couldn't attest to. I know of only one incident where my oldest saw the babies.
Okay. And your oldest made sure to tell you she saw the babies.
Yeah, after about a week.
Okay. Miss Duffy didn't tell your oldest not to tell you that she had seen Miss Duffy, right?
Her mother did.
Okay. Her mother, Ella's mother?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, I think that's all.
Redirect.
Mr. Duffy, you have FaceTime calls with your children twice per week since this divorce started?
Correct.
So that's approximately 8 calls per month,
Correct.
times the last 7 months, over 50 calls.
Objection to leading, Judge.
Ms. Daniel, lead the witness, please.
About approximately how many calls would you have had with them over the past several months since this divorce has started?
Between 45 and 50 is when I would have been scheduled.
So Ms. Duke asked you if you had possibly missed 7 calls. Is it possible that you missed any more than that?
Highly unlikely, but I mean, if they say 7, then it was 7, but I don't believe it was 7.
You believe it was 7 or less?
I think it was 7 or less.
And all the other calls you've made?
Objection to the leading.
Have you made all the other calls that you're allowed to make?
Correct.
I have a document here. Mr. Duffy, are those your, can you tell the court what those are?
These are my certificates from Main Street Interventions
And
Incorporated.
I apologize, I only had 2 copies. If you can pass that copy back.
Judge, that's outside the scope, but I'm not gonna object.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark that as Exhibit 4.
All right, mark it as Exhibit 4, please.
And Mr. Duffy, that's confirmation that you completed what classes again?
Instead of a 10-week, I did a 12-week parenting class, and I did a 26-step domestic violence for males in a 12-week period.
And is that your understanding that that was consistent with Dr. Davis's recommendation?
That is correct.
Ms. Duke made an allegation that you've called your children bitch and asshole. Is there any truth to that allegation?
No.
Have you ever used that language directed at your children?
Previously, a while ago, yes, sure.
Have you used that language since taking your classes?
No.
Would you use that language?
No.
And Ms. Duke asked you why you hid the fact that you had left the children alone from Dr. Davis. Did you omit that fact from Dr. Davis?
Not purposely omitted. But I believe I told him in November that I had left them home by themselves for a few hours while I went and drove. Their mother called me on it. We made an agreement prior to her filing her TRO.
And you told Dr. Davis about the TRO?
That's correct.
And did he ask you questions about what led to the TRO?
Yes.
And did you answer them all honestly?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Anything further, Ms. Duke? While she's thinking about it, let me ask a couple of
Thank you,
questions.
Judge.
Number one, why would this client feel like he needed to call you to get you involved in recovering that phone? It wasn't lost in your time with this client, correct?
That's correct. They thought that I may have had it. They thought that they may have left it in the limousine.
Is this person that you call a client someone local or someone from out of town?
They're from Canada.
From Canada?
Correct.
All right. Soon to be the 51st state. In any event, the facts of the matter that this person contacted you, and did they ask you if you had the phone?
They asked if I was in the area or if I had the phone.
They were asking you to go intercede with this person that they thought had the phone.
Not necessarily. They asked if I had the phone.
Okay. And then they asked you to do what?
They didn't ask me anything further than that. They asked if I had the phone, and I asked them I asked them what was going on. They explained the situation, that they had left the phone somewhere and it was pinging at a home address in Franklin.
Okay. And did you just volunteer to go and recover this?
I did.
You did?
Correct.
All right. I practiced law for a long time. I had a lot of clients, but I never volunteered to go and intercede with a client to try to pick things up or to just interject myself into a situation I was not involved in. I just am curious as to why you felt it appropriate to do that.
At the time, I was easily accessible to actually make that drive versus them checking out of a hotel, getting a cab, taking an Uber out to that location.
Was he going to pay you to go recover this phone?
No.
And you had all three of your children, the older children, with you?
Correct.
And what were you doing with the three children in the car?
We had just finished eating lunch.
Just finished eating?
Correct.
Okay. And so you decided that you go and help them recover it with the children in the car? Right?
Correct.
And it's my understanding that your testimony is today under oath that you did not have a weapon with you?
Correct.
Now, you testified that one of your 9-year-old twins has some anger issues. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when he balls up his fist and comes at you, you have to leave and go into another room.
Correct.
Now, you have 3 children, 2 of which are those 9-year-old twins and one that's a 10-year-old girl.
11-year-old.
11-year-old, all right. And you're asking to then add in a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old to have with you unsupervised for the entire weekend. That's what you're asking me to do.
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever had 5 children like that and one of those varying ages in your care at one time?
Yes.
When?
There's been multiple occasions when mom worked.
When mom works. You're talking about Mrs.
Miss Duffy.
Duffy?
Correct.
All right. And you had all 5 children. Of course, they would have been younger then, correct?
Correct.
And you had no problems with any of that?
No, I actually dropped her off at a meeting and I took all 5 kids to a store.
Well, you may be a braver man than I am. But let me ask this question. Well, I don't need to ask any other questions. Anything else based on what I've asked this witness?
Said you volunteered to go because you were more easily accessible to go do it, and they would have to check out of a hotel and all that. But do you remember your prior testimony, you saying that they're already?
They were on their way.
Okay.
But they
So you
still
didn't
had
have-
to check out of a hotel.
So you didn't have a purpose really to go, other than
On
you were
the,
gung ho to go, weren't you?
I was helping a client.
That's all.
Thank you. You can step down, Mr. Duffy. We're going to take our mid-morning recess. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes.
All rise.
All right, are you ready to call your next witness?
Your Honor, I'd like to call Connie Russell.
Connie Russell. You don't like it sticking out? Bothering you than my tie sticking out? Thank you for that. It'd be worse could be my zipper was down. So. Russell, if you'll come around, please. You'll step around here with the bailiff. I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and let the clerk place you under oath.
Can you please state your full name for the court?
Connie Russell.
And how do you know the parties?
If you'll move up to that microphone and pull that base of that microphone towards you, and it'll be a little easier. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Can you say that again so everyone can hear you?
Connie Russell.
And how do you know Mr. Duffy?
He's my nephew.
He's your nephew. And can you tell us, do you know Miss Duffy as well?
Miss Duffy, I do.
And do you know the children?
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship
My relationship with,
with Daryl and,
Daryl?
and Brittany and the children?
you know, I helped raise him, most of my life. Brittany, she's been okay, we've not been real close or nothing like that, but, we've talked from time to time, and been to their house and things like that, we've kids and things, and
You said you've kept the kids?
when she's done photo shoots, even Daryl's mom, we would go sit in the car with them when she was having photo shoots.
Was this before or after the parties separated?
This was before.
And do you also know Daryl's ex-wife?
I do.
What is your relationship like with her?
It's fine. I don't have any issues with her.
And do you have a close relationship with the children?
I do.
Can you tell the court a little bit about your relationships with the children?
With older children.
Well, tell us about both.
Okay, yeah, the older children, he's had them for winter break, and I'm there pretty much. When he doesn't have a sitter for them, I'm there. They're with me when he has to work. I take care of them. Do things. They come to the house. They love playing outside.
Ma'am, you have a very soft voice, and so I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone even closer to
Okay.
you and try to make sure we're recording
Okay.
everything that's being said, so it's important
Got
we
you.
pick it all up.
Okay, all righty. But yeah, the kids and I have got a great relationship, even Addie and Layla.
Those are the younger
Those
children.
are the little ones, yes, those are little ones, Layla's, she's a hoot, and Addie is too, and I've gotten closer with those two since I've been with them on Sundays. I've gotten really close with them. And and that they're just good kids.
Now, Ms. Russell, you are a supervisor in this action.
Yes, I am.
Are you present on every Sunday when Mr. Duffy has the children?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell us a little bit about what those visits look like?
Well, we here in Dixon, we're from Nashville. Here in Dixon, there's not a lot of places to go on Sundays, so we do. We take them to eat. We go let them bowl. They love to go bowling, and then just take them to the lake, let them feed the ducks. We just try to find something to do on Sundays. Like I said, you're kind of limited here. We go shopping. Go to Walmart, or we go here or there, but that's pretty much what we do.
And are you present the entire time?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know of any time that Mr. Duffy has had the children without you present?
No, no. Mm-mm.
And do you have an opportunity to observe how he interacts with the children?
Yes.
Can you tell the court a little bit about that?
He does good with the little ones. He does good with them. They love him. They hug on him. Layla gives him kisses, and Addie, same thing. You know, they go up and just, you know, hug and, you know, Addie's got a thing that she goes up to bowl, she's got to get dad's okay before she'll let that bowl roll down, you know. So it's, you know, the relationship with them is good.
Did Daryl live with you at any point?
He did just for a short period of time.
When was that?
This was after they separated, and he stayed there for a short period of time,
And now, about how far apart do you live from him?
a mile.
Okay. And about how often do you see him?
Do I see him all the time?
And do you have concerns about Daryl's parenting?
Not really. You know, it's just like, you know, parents they'll yell at their kids. You know, you hear them out in Walmart or wherever else, you know, yelling at their kids. I don't think he's no different than any other parent.
Do you have any concerns about him having all 5 children?
No, ma'am.
Have you watched him handle all 5 children?
Yes, ma'am.
And does that, in your observation, are there challenges?
There are challenges, you know, with 5 children, of course, there's challenges, you know.
What do you think is the most difficult thing with Daryl's children in particular?
I think with one of them in particular, it's Parker. Parker's got a little bit, of course, he's ADHD. And so, you know, we have to really watch him, you know, and kind of keep him even keel, you know, saying, you know, because he will kind of blurt out, and not blurt out, but just kind of not act out, but I can't really explain how he does, but that's part of ADHD.
Does Parker exhibit anger issues?
Sometimes he does, yeah.
How have you seen Daryl handle that?
He tries to get him to calm down and say, you know, you don't need to be doing that. And that's pretty much basically it.
Have you had the opportunity to observe Daryl trying to deal with Parker and also handle the little ones at the same time?
Well, usually Parker, usually if we're outside, not in the vehicle, you know, he'll correct him and tell him he's not supposed to do that. You know, why are you doing it? And, you know, and Parker a lot of times responds, well, I'm angry. Why are you angry?
Have you ever seen Daryl deal with Parker in a way that you felt was inappropriate?
Not really. Mm-mm.
Were you present in the bowling alley?
I was.
Several weeks ago.
I was.
And can you tell the court what you observed?
What I observed, I was back there with my niece, Ella. We was playing a little air hockey. Layla was over here. I turned around and she was gone. And I went, okay, so I immediately went, found her. They had already had her. And Daryl was kind of upset with Parker because Parker was standing there with her. And like I said, when I turned around, they were gone. And so when I got there, Layla was fine. Parker, you know, he was fussing at Parker because, you know, Parker did not hold on to Layla's hand and stuff like he was supposed to. And so other than that, you know, there's a lady who was saying something, and I told her, I said, look, this is not your business, please, you know, just, you know, this is not your business. And so we turned her off. I turned around and we started walking off.
You said he was fussing at Parker. Do you think that he was speaking to Parker in a way that was inappropriate at that time?
No, not when it concerns a child, you know, like Layla, you know, coming up. And no, because like I said, you know, I was upset that Parker did that. And I know it's not Parker's responsibility, but I said she was there and then she wasn't there. And that's, like I said, that's when I took off, you know. Like I said, they had already got her, you know, a matter of a few seconds or half a minute.
Have you observed other incidents like that where Parker may have gotten in trouble or done something to upset Daryl?
Parker is a child that he will try anybody's patience. Okay, let me say that. But you know, like I said, it's no different than, you know, Daryl's not overly angry at him. You know, he's just trying to get him to say, look, this is not what we're supposed to do. You know, why are you doing this? And like I said, Parker goes, so I'm angry. And that's all I can tell you.
Have you noticed any changes in Daryl's interactions with Parker over the past several months?
I have.
Can you tell the
yeah.
court about that?
They've gotten a lot better. They've gotten a lot better.
How so?
Daryl's he's not as loud. He tries to talk to Parker in a good way and get him to calm down and we try to keep him from getting to a point where he's that angry. And like I said, I think he's done a great job recently with them.
Do you ever have any issues with Parker or any of the other children unbuckling their seatbelts in the car, or?
Occasionally they do.
They do, okay.
Yeah, I always tell them, buckle up, Buttercup. So,
Does Daryl, in your opinion, is Daryl vigilant about that?
about him using
All of the children?
all the children, yes.
And how does he
wants to-
handle it if they do unbuckle
They
or?
tell them, get in the seat, and a lot of times Ella, if they unbuckle, Ella will say, buckle up, get back, put your seatbelt on. So if you're sitting up front, you can't see them take it off. And so Ella she'll say, well, they took their seatbelt off. So we tell them to put their seatbelts back on.
Do you think that Daryl would be able to handle all 5 children on his own without your help?
I think so.
Do you have any concerns?
Not really.
If he were to have all 5 children on his own, what do you think would be the biggest difficulties for him?
Gosh, I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of anything like that. So I don't really know.
Okay.
Because he hasn't had all 5 of them.
But would you have concerns about him having the 5 of them
I
on their
would
own?
not.
Okay. What is the relationship like between the older children and the younger children?
They miss the younger ones, and it's great. Addie, not Addie, but Layla loves Parker, Jackson, all of them. All of those 5 kids are good.
Do you think the children would benefit from more time together?
I think they would.
Do you think they would benefit from more time with Daryl?
I think they would.
Can you tell the court why?
Well, I think they miss their dad. I know they miss their daddy.
And what have you observed that makes you think they miss him?
Well, because when they see him, it's hugs and kisses. And, I think they would benefit from him being a part of their lives, just like any father being a part of their children's lives.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Those are all of my questions.
Ms. Duke, do you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor. So when he sees his children, it's all love. They don't tell him that they hate him, do they?
No.
Okay. And he's still yelling at the kids?
Occasionally he will,
Okay.
Especially like I said, Parker, when Parker gets loud and I said, Parker does have some anger issues.
Are you aware that the babysitter that he's leaving the children with has lost custody of 2 children to 2 different people?
I've heard parts, I don't know the whole story behind
Okay,
it.
so what do you know about that?
I just know that she's been in classes that some of them that Daryl's taken.
Okay. But what do you know about her situation, about what
I
she's
don't
done?
really know
Okay.
anything about it.
Are you aware of her having to get stitches
No,
from punching glass?
no.
Mr. Duffy is here asking for Friday to Sunday every week except for the last weekend of the month. Is that true? Is that true? I mean, do you know that to be?
That I don't know what he's asking.
He works every Saturday, doesn't he?
That's right, and I have the children every Saturday.
Okay. You've seen him carrying his gun?
He does not have it around his children.
He doesn't have his gun around it, but you've seen him carrying it?
I've seen him carry it, but he's not had it around his children.
Prior to testifying, did you discuss the testimony that had gone on in here while you were outside?
There was no one to discuss it with.
Okay.
It's just me out there.
And Mr. Duffy, he doesn't ride with a seatbelt very often, does he?
No, he doesn't.
Okay. So is he pretty much telling the kids to do as I say, not as I do with the
No,
seatbelt?
He tells them to put their seatbelt on.
You've heard him call the kids asshole since we were in court the last time, haven't you?
So,
Okay, have you heard him call them bitch,
no.
little bitches?
No, because when the kids have been saying ugly words, we get on to them about saying those words.
Okay.
I strictly forbid them to do it in my house when they're out. And then, of course, the other kids will tell them, well, this one said this, that one said that. So I do tell them they cannot be doing that. I don't approve of it.
Are you aware that he took the 3 oldest minor children to receive stolen property or property that had been misplaced?
What are you talking about? Property?
If you're not aware, you can say, I don't know anything
Okay,
about that.
okay.
It's okay. I just asked to see if you know.
Okay.
And you don't have any problem with Miss Duffy, do you?
No,
Okay. As a matter of fact, you've told her and his mom told her repeatedly that she was the best thing that ever happened to him.
it was.
Okay.
But then also, when we would leave their house, Daryl's mom would say, why doesn't she like me? She don't talk
Okay. Is
Why
she a
don't she
quiet
like me?
person?
to me.
Miss
Brittany, I
Duffy's a
guess-
quiet person, isn't
I
she?
guess she could be, yeah.
Okay. If I may have 1 minute, Judge, I think.
You
I'm
may.
Judge, that's all.
Redirect for this witness. Ms. Russell, let me ask you a couple of questions. You've been supervising these Sunday afternoon visits, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I understand what happened in the bowling alley, that all came out the last time we were in court. But as far as the afternoon visits, is that a major inconvenience for you to continue doing that?
No, it
Okay.
is not. I work Monday through Fridays.
What do you do?
I'm a supervisor, but coordinator, operations coordinator for surgical services and materials at
Okay,
St. Thomas.
all right. So it's not a problem for you to be there to supervise these
No,
children?
it is not. And I get off work early enough. I go into work at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm home usually by 1:30 in the
Now,
afternoon.
are you married? I'm not trying to pry into your
I-
life.
I
I'm just
don't
trying to see
mind.
what your situation
I don't
is. So, all right. And as the aunt of Mr. Duffy, you are willing to continue to do that if I
Yes,
were to
I
say that's
will.
necessary?
As long as, however long,
As long as what?
as long as it's necessary.
All right. All right, well, thank you. Anything else? Thank you. You may step down, Ms. Russell, and have a seat in the courtroom if you like, or you may leave. All right, next witness. All right, I'll reserve the right to let you call him as a rebuttal witness. Ms. Duke, do you have witnesses?
Judge, I call Miss Duffy.
Duffy, if you'll come around, please. You'll raise your right hand and face our clerk to be placed under oath.
Ms. Duffy, do you continue to be concerned, even under supervision, about your children being in Mr. Duffy's care?
I do.
Okay. When you had the phone conversation with your, and I'm sorry, state your full name for the record.
Brittany and Duffy,
He launched right into it. And you are the mother of,
Adeline and Layla.
okay. And are those Mr. Duffy's children?
They are
And their ages are?
2 and just turned 4 yesterday.
And did you have the opportunity during this case to help facilitate some FaceTime calls for Mr. Duffy?
Yes,
Okay. And have you refused FaceTime calls for him?
I have not. The only times was when the kids were already asleep and it was past his time to call.
Okay, and how often has that been?
At least 7 times.
Okay. So if he was late in calling but still called and the kids were awake, would you still allow him to speak with the children?
If they were awake and in bed, I actually went in and let him talk to them at least once or twice.
Okay. So how many has he missed completely?
Are you saying not called at all?
Not called at all.
Probably 5 or 6 times.
And you heard the one time he lost track of time and just could not call. Is that
Right.
fair?
I was never told, but yes.
Has he ever provided you an explanation for why he's not doing all of his FaceTime calls?
I think once he said he had a meeting and that was all.
Now, skipping back, on the FaceTime call that you having to hold the phone.
Yes, I hold it because otherwise it'll be dropped or call ended or taken elsewhere and left.
You may.
In this instance, were the children on their way back from Chattanooga?
Yes, they were in the car coming from somewhere.
Okay. And were they unbuckled?
They were.
Was the vehicle, could you see the vehicle moving?
Yes, the lights from other cars were moving.
Okay. And is that why you screenshotted that?
It is because I was concerned for those kids as well.
Okay. And those are Mr. Duffy's older children?
They are.
Judge, I'd submit that as the next marked exhibit.
Marking it as the next exhibit 5.
Are you telling Mr. Duffy or the children to hate their father?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Are you encouraging their relationship?
Yes.
Is that the first time today that you've ever heard him say, or that you've ever heard anything about your kids saying, I hate you, Daddy?
I have never heard that before today.
Okay. And then you heard his aunt testify that it's all lovey-dovey and they love him.
Right.
Okay. Are you concerned for the safety of your children, knowing that he's been through all these anger management classes and parenting classes, and he's still making poor decisions?
Yes.
Regarding the babysitter, what are your concerns there?
I'm concerned for the other kids as well.
Were you even more concerned when he refused to provide this court with her last name?
Yes, because I would do research as a mom to see who was watching my children.
You heard him testify, you heard Mr. Duffy testify that he still yells at the kids, and you heard his aunt testify that he still yells at the kids. Based on his parenting classes and based on his past history, are you concerned that he's still yelling at them?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is that based on his history and what you've observed when he does get angry?
Yes.
Have you seen his aunt be scared of him before?
Yes, once or twice.
I'm sorry, repeat your question.
Have you seen his aunt, the supervisor, be scared of him
Or
once
I
or
should
twice?
say embarrassed is probably a better word.
Okay. When he overreacted about situations? When you found out about him going to confront the people in Franklin, did that leave you concerned?
I'm sorry, the question,
Just a lack of foundation. We haven't heard any evidence about how or whether Ms. Duffy knows anything about this situation.
Well, she knows about it from today.
Well, we haven't
you
had
talking
any
to her or you
evidence.
talking to me?
I'm sorry. You,
If you're talking to me, repeat what you said.
Judge, I asked if if another concern was that he took his other children to confront the person in Franklin about the phone.
Well, that's an implication of him taking the children with him to retrieve this phone for his client. There wasn't any evidence of him teaching the children other than that, the implication being if he takes the kids and shows them what he's doing, that is somehow implies that that's the way they should behave.
I didn't say teaching, I'm sorry. Just taking them to this location to retrieve a phone is what I asked her.
Well, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Have you had other concerns regarding the safety of the older children and your children?
Yes.
And what are those?
My children getting lost, taken, hurt from him confronting somebody else because people do crazy things nowadays. And
Did you hear him say that that person tried to extort $30 out of him?
I did hear that.
Does that concern you?
It does.
When you get your children back, are they clean and changed and orderly?
There's been a couple times where they've come back and they've had diaper rashes that are pretty bad from not being changed during his parenting time. And the first couple of times, I know toddlers are toddlers and fall, but there was some excessive bruises on one of my daughter's legs as well.
Are you concerned that he's telling the older children not to disclose to their mother about what's going on his time?
Yes, they should tell their moms everything.
And vice versa, you would expect that your children should tell him everything going on in your home, is that
Right.
correct? Are you concerned that even while he's been under the microscope of this court, that he was leaving his children alone until 2 and 3 a.m. in the morning?
I'm very concerned about that because I loved those kids too.
Well, and let's talk about that. Do you have a friendly relationship with his ex?
I have a cordial relationship with her, yes.
So when you say cordial, you're not just running to her and she's not just running to you to tell you things?
No,
Okay. Do you make sure that your children see her children?
I do. When we can, I try to.
Okay. Did you have the occasion to be close to where that mother lives in the east side of Nashville?
I was in Mount Juliet and I picked up Ella because she was home and took her out because she was really missing the girls. And so I wanted to make sure she saw them.
Did you care for those children in your home?
I did the whole time we were married and even before.
Okay. And during that time, the mother of those children didn't take issue with your ability to care for them, did
No.
she? Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the court?
I don't believe so.
Are you asking the court just to keep the same visitation schedule?
Yeah, for now.
You may cross-examine.
Ms. Duffy, you said that that photograph that was admitted as an exhibit was a picture that you took on a FaceTime call with the younger children?
It was.
And you said that you could tell from the lights of the cars that the cars were moving and the older children were unbuckled,
They were unbuckled, yes.
but you didn't say anything to Mr. Duffy about that?
I did not.
Or at all to the children about buckling their seatbelts?
I didn't.
You just screenshotted it so that you could have it for court today?
I screenshot it because I was concerned for them that he was not telling them to buckle their seatbelt.
Did you call their mother to report that?
I did tell their mother, yes.
And you said that you are cordial with their mother.
I am.
Aren't you calling her pretty regularly?
I wouldn't say regularly, no. Only when we have concerns about the kids.
And you're not calling her to find out if there's information that you could use against Mr. Duffy? and vice versa?
Normally, she says that there was an incident that happened.
Are you questioning her children about incidents that happened?
No, I don't question the kids.
You said that your children have come home with diaper rash,
Yes.
and you believe that it was caused by 4 hours with Mr. Duffy, not by...
Either riding in the car and the diapers were completely full.
And why are these children not potty trained yet? The oldest is 4. Are you working on potty training them?
We are working on potty training, yes.
Okay, but you
she's
don't
very
send-
stubborn, so we are working on it.
And you don't send pull-ups with her to Mr. Duffy's house, you just send her in a diaper?
No, I don't send pull-ups yet because she's still in a diaper.
So she's always in a diaper at your house, too?
Yes.
And you don't think that could be contributing to possible diaper rash? that she's-
We're working on it right now.
And she never gets diaper rash on your time?
Because I change her regularly,
Okay. How regularly do you change her?
about every hour or two. She drinks a lot of water.
So you think she might be missing a changing when she's with Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
She wouldn't be able to be missing more than a changing since he's only got her for 4 hours.
No, probably a changing. Sometimes two. It just depends on how much she drinks.
And you're under an order not to follow Mr. Duffy during his parenting time.
I am.
Have you been having other people following him?
I have not had anybody follow him.
You didn't have women follow him around a Goodwill store?
No.
No?
No.
You didn't have people following him in his car?
No,
while he's
because
driving
that's
with the
his
children?
time.
Okay. But you previously have followed him yourself,
Only once because I was concerned for the safety of my child.
and you previously had obtained video footage of him when he was in the bowling alley because your friend runs that bowling alley.
Because it was concerning the kids.
But you don't have anybody else following him at
I
this
don't have
point.
anybody.
And you did
following.
not put
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
you did not put an air tag on his car?
I did not put an air tag on his car.
Do you know the babysitter?
I do not.
How did you know about, or let me ask you, did you know? How did you know about this babysitter before?
Somebody had told me.
Who told you?
Ashley told me.
And Ashley knew about the babysitter because he disclosed the babysitter to her, correct?
Yes. Or Ella did. I don't know who did.
So Ashley called you to tell you about the babysitter, but Ashley didn't ask that he not use that babysitter.
So she said she was not comfortable with that babysitter.
But she knows the babysitter has been watching the children.
I don't know.
You don't know. You only know that she told you that the babysitter exists, but you don't know whether she's requested for him not to use that babysitter.
I believe she requested, well, she said to me she was not comfortable with that babysitter, but I don't know what happened after that.
What was the point of her telling you about the babysitter?
Because she was concerned for her kids.
And how does that concern you other than using it in court against Mr. Duffy?
I'm going to object argumentative.
Overrule this cross-examination. Repeat the question.
My question is why, other than to give you information to use against Mr. Duffy, would Ashley tell you anything about this babysitter?
Because if Daryl got more time with the kids and was using the same babysitter, it would impact me as well.
Okay, so she's not concerned, to your knowledge, about stopping the babysitter from watching her children. She hasn't done anything to stop that.
Objection, that's a misrepresentation of her testimony.
Sustained.
To your knowledge, she hasn't done anything to stop that babysitter from watching her children. Isn't that what you just said?
I don't know what the last rulings were exactly.
Okay, but she did not tell you that she was going to take any steps to stop that babysitter from watching her children.
I know that she said that she needs to know who the babysitter is, and that's all I know.
Okay. But she did go out of her way to tell you about it so that you could come here today. Isn't that correct? And tell the court about it?
She told me because she was concerned, and we talk about the concerns of both of our sets of kids.
And you regularly talk about concerns with Mr.
And
Duffy?
I wouldn't say regularly. I would say when it comes up, then, or if somebody needs to know, then yes, we do talk about it.
Okay. I have no other questions.
No follow-up.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Anything else, Ms. Duke?
Nothing.
Any rebuttal proof? Dr. Davis, if you want to come back, please. I would remind you, you remain under oath.
Dr. Davis, when you were last testifying, you were asked some hypothetical questions about whether certain incidents might impact your decisions. And you've now had an opportunity to hear the evidence all of the evidence that's before the court today. So I want to ask you, does anything that you have heard change your recommendations?
The only thing I heard that would make me modify a recommendation is the issue of the choice of the babysitter. I think clearly Mr. Duffy has not just the right to know, but the responsibility to know who's watching his children. And I think that it would be appropriate to limit his use of babysitters unless he's going from an agency where they do background checks, or he's checked it out ahead with the mom and gotten her approval on the babysitter. Other than that, in terms of the trip to pick up the gun or pick up the phone, excuse me, I think he answered that adequately from my perspective. Again, should he be taking the kids out to do his work? I can just say, I know, my father took me to a machine shop and I ran machines, probably an OSHA violation now, but I learned how to work. I think kids seeing their parents work is not a bad thing. I think it's actually a helpful thing. Now, I don't know that that's true for 2 and 4-year-olds, but I think in the situation that he was in, for the older kids, that's fine. But the only thing I heard at all was this choice of babysitter issue, and I think the court could address that by limiting what he does with that, but nothing else about him babysitting.
And your recommendation would be that he be limited to not using babysitters unless they had a background check?
Yeah, from an agency that does a background check or checks it out with the mom first and they have an agreement.
But nothing that you heard today would change your recommendation that it would be appropriate for him to have the full weekends unsupervised?
That's correct.
Did you find his answers to be credible
I did.
based on your expertise?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Ms. Duke?
Failure of him to use a seatbelt with his children was a concern?
For him himself?
Or him not using a seatbelt?
Well, his answer was that he had pulled off to the side and that there was a stoppage in traffic and they weren't moving and he allowed them to talk on the video. But, so I don't think that's a problem if traffic has stopped. But I think the testimony both from his aunt and he is that they always require seatbelts.
And you heard him testify that he's continuing to yell at the children when these kids have been traumatized by his yelling in the past. Is that something he needs to continue to do?
I think that sometimes parents yell. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know that we can, I don't know that it'd even be appropriate to restrict him from yelling at times. I didn't hear anything about any language that was abusive in what he did, both his testimony and his aunt's. And I think sometimes kids will be yelled at.
His decision-making alone, hiring somebody that has been accused of trying to kill their child. I understand the court putting in provisions to prevent that from happening, but the fact that he made that decision doesn't leave you concerned for his mental health?
I don't know if I'd say for his mental health, but I think it's a poor parenting decision. I mean, it's important to check out babysitters all the time.
And when he made this decision when he's under the microscope of this court already.
You're correct.
And that's concerning, isn't it?
I think it's just concerning that he would make that decision, period.
Okay. And you heard the testimony that he said those people were already on the way to pick up that phone, and that when he got there to pick up that phone, that they tried to extort him for $30. He was in a confrontation at that point, was he not?
I don't know. That's like it was an ask and he denied it. I don't know if. I mean,
No, he's the one that told us that they tried to extort $30.
right. But I mean, that doesn't. You're saying you moving that up to a level of confrontation. That was the person asked for money. He denied giving him that. But that doesn't mean that it was a confrontational issue.
Judge, that's all.
You're right. Thank you, Dr. Davis. You may step down. You may call your next witness. Anything further? You wish to be heard in argument?
I'll waive it.
One of the obligations and jobs that I have and that sometimes keeps me awake at night is making decisions regarding the custody and the best interest of minor children. It is always difficult, if not impossible, to predict the future with children and how things are going to go in a parenting situation. We judge that by past behavior. We judge it by expert testimony sometimes. We judge it by things that have happened in the past and, observation of the demeanor and behavior of the people when they're here in the courtroom. That's all I have to go on. I don't know these children. These two younger children, I do know what it's like to have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I have grandchildren that are basically the same age or in that same age group. And I know they can be a handful sometimes. I also know that I grew up in a family of 5 children. I was the middle child, but it was chaotic at times. And there were certainly situations where my parents were having to try to make them, juggle things in order to handle that. But that was a 2-parent household. In this particular case, the court has previously put down an order, and the last time we were here in August, I think the original order was by agreement. The last time we were here in August was to review the decision or the visitation schedule in order to determine whether or not it should be expanded. And at that time, I found that Dr. Davis had made recommendations according to that report, and that Mr. Duffy hadn't completed all of those recommendations. He has now done that. So as a result, he's complied with what the court and Dr. Davis said that he needed to do. From one perspective, you can say, I understand Mrs. Duffy having concerns about Mr. Duffy, but you were married to him for 5 years. And during that 5 years, you were around him and his other older children, and you became very close to them. So you observed his parenting skills and his parenting methods at that point. I'm sure that led to your divorce, the behavior that he showed and everything. But you were married to him for 5 years, and you chose to have children with him. When you have children with another parent, it becomes a situation where that parent, both parents, have rights that are supposed to be enforced by this court. Preeminent of all of my considerations is the best interest of the minor children. That is, as all of our courts say, is the pole star of any decision in a custody case is the best interest of the minor children. So I have to balance the fact that Mrs. Duffy was married to Mr. Duffy. She knew what he was like as a parent. She chose to have children with him. And as a result of that, obviously the situation may have changed over the years, and she may have realized her mistake or whatever happened that led him to this point. But clearly Mr. Duffy has some issues. My main concern at this point in time is that Mr. Duffy has demonstrated a regrettable lack of proper decision making. His decision process escapes me. you are lucky not to be charged with reckless homicide or criminally negligent homicide. If your house had caught fire while those children were there alone, you could have been in the midst of an immeasurable and unimaginable tragedy. And that happens. Children are left alone at home like that. Bad things happen. And that is, in my opinion, the most concerning thing that I've heard today has been the fact that you would leave those. The second most concerning thing is that, as has been pointed out, you have been under this court's supervision regarding your children, and with that knowledge, you chose for your older children to employ a young lady who is 20 years old and has lost custody of her children, based on what I'm hearing, and has been having to go to parenting classes. And as a result of that, you put her in charge of your older children. And I'm assuming you would be using her as a babysitter for that. So there are never any easy decisions in this case, but one decision I can tell you that's easy in this matter is I'm going to appoint a guardian ad litem to act on behalf of these minor children. And I do that even knowing that it's going to create some additional issues, but there needs to be someone whose interest is solely for the best interest of the children other than this court. And I know that Mrs. Duffy feels like that's her only consideration, but obviously she has concerns and she has things that she doesn't like about Mr. Duffy. And so her testimony is always going to be somewhat filtered through how she feels about him, and how that, as Mr. Duffy says, she hasn't spoken 10 words to him or something like that. So there's really no communication. Mr. Duffy obviously feels like he's being mistreated, and I understand that theory, but I want to have someone else involved whose only consideration is the minor children. Mickey Furlong Smith is the choice that I would make if she's willing and able to take this case. She does a lot of these kinds of guardian ad litem cases in this court. And she has a history, a background of having retired from the Department of Children's Services. And as a result, I trust implicitly her in putting her in these situations. But by the same token, I'm being asked today to lift the supervision of children, not only lift the supervision of his time, and to increase his visitation and go with every other or 3 weekends a month. And I'm not willing to do that based on what I've heard. The reason I'm not willing to do it is because, number one, as I've said, the things that have happened by Mr. Duffy, and you can say all you want to about taking these children with him to go and retrieve this phone. There's something that smells bad about that situation. There is something that is, in my opinion, inappropriate about him voluntarily inserting himself into a dispute that's not of his own making. He says he did it for a client. Well, so be it. He wasn't paid to do it, but he had put his children into a potentially volatile situation with going to retrieve this phone. In addition to that, he's left these children, his older children, alone for extended periods of time. And I think he continues to have some issues with anger. I think that what I would do instead is to continue the supervision. Ms. Russell has indicated she's willing to continue to do that. And I'm going to continue the supervision, but I'm going to increase the amount of time that he has on Sundays to 8 hours. He'll have them from 8 o'clock in the morning until whatever that, I guess 5 o'clock in the afternoon, whatever that would equate to be on Sundays. I'm giving you additional time so that you can try to work through these things. What that does is it gives you an opportunity to make sure that the children are fed properly, that the children are taken care of with their hygiene and everything else that needs to be. You need to start demonstrating your ability to parent the children. Ms. Russell, of all of the testimony I've heard, Ms. Russell seems to me to be a very honest individual who wants to help her great niece and great nephews, and she wants to be able to assist you, and you're lucky to have her. And for that reason, I'm going to continue for right now until we can see how the guardian ad litem gets involved in this case and get whatever she's going to do. But in my opinion, that's a necessary thing to continue the supervision because of the decision-making process that Mr. Duffy has demonstrated to this court while this case has been pending and while we've had the supervision. I want you to have more time with your kids. I want to move to this type of situation. But you're going to have to start demonstrating more stability, more maturity for someone. You're 40, 41, is that right? And, you know, you're old enough to know that you've got 3 other children. Another factor is that right now, I'm hearing that this 9-year-old has some anger issues and that there's issues where you have to walk away, putting the 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in that home for an entire weekend, 48 hours, unsupervised, is something that I have concerns about and I'm not willing to do at this point. That may change in the not too distant future. I would like for this to get to be able to give you what you want, but I am of the opinion that you have first got to demonstrate a stronger decision-making, and you also have to demonstrate some ability to parent these children aside from having it supervised. So I understand driving on the interstate. I understand what you said about the fact that the children you were stopped at that point. Mrs. Duffy has testified that she saw the lights moving, whatever that is. You have a wreck and those children go through the windshield of that vehicle, you're going to regret not having them strapped in. So you will at all times have these 2 minor children, if he requires to transport them, in a proper child restraint device. The other 3 children are not my concern, other than the fact I have no jurisdiction over them, but I am ordering that these 2 children will at all times will handle correctly in their transportation. Is there anything other than that? Obviously, this is a temporary hearing, and I'm making that modification to extend the time, and we'll go from there.
I think that
All
handles
right.
it, Judge. Who do you want to draft the order?
You will. Well, actually, Ms. Morris, do you mind drawing the order for us? Yes, it needs to reflect the appointment of Ms. Mickey Furlong Smith. We have judges who are here every month, but I'm not going to set another review date until, I can set one in May, which is the next, is that when I'm back? May, which is my next term of court here. And May 14th and 15th.
Probably the 14th is better. We've got graduation that week also.
May 14th? All right, we'll set a review on May 14th. Wednesdays are juvenile court day, I think, downstairs, is that right?
They are.
So that may be your problem, but just check with her. If that's going to present a problem, we can put it on the 15th.
Let's just go ahead and do the 15th. Thank you, Judge. Here, let me your notes and everything.
Ned Lighten?
But an ad litem cost would be split equally between the parties.
Thank you.
He usually doesn't submit a bill until the end anyway. So.